It's time for the onesie positions for week 2. Hopefully you all won last week. We're going to bring you another victory here in these games. Let's kick things off with the quarterback one on the week. His name is Lamar Jackson against the Cleveland Browns. Ravens projected for the most points, over 28 against this Browns defense. I mean, it makes sense after you watch them against the Bills defense. Lamar targeted his wide receivers at a career high rate of 79% of his throws in week 1. They might get Isaiah Likely back for this game, but even if they don't, that's when you bring in DeAndre Hopkins. You have other role players on top of Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. And then, Lamar even had rushing points in week 1 alongside Derrick Henry. It's an easy start here in week 2. I will add, though, having him as quarterback 1 is notable. After the last 2 games against this Browns defense, he was quarterback 6 with 24 points and quarterback 9 with 23 points in the last 2 games again against Cleveland. Josh Allen is Hayden's quarterback 2 at the New York Jets. Bills are second in projected points this week at 26.25. Jets defense now with Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes in week 1 played a ton of man coverage and also blitzed at a pretty high rate. You can't really do those things against Josh Allen. You're going to get torched. So either they change or they get burned. I'm not sure if they're going to change. And so Josh Allen could easily make his mark again as the overall quarterback 1 and outscoring every other player at the position by about 6 points. Jalen Hurts is the quarterback 3. Super Bowl rematch at the Kansas City Chiefs. And we all know what happened in the Super Bowl against this same Chiefs team. Let's go back to week 1 first, though. Only 35% of his passes traveled 5 or more air yards, the lowest rate in the league in week 1. We've talked about this, though. That is what Matt Eberflus did in terms of playing a bunch of zone coverage and off coverage and preventing a lot of big plays. Then he did his work as a scrambler. I mean, his 2 rushing touchdowns on scrambles in week 1 matched 2 non-scrambling touchdowns he had over the previous 2 seasons. I thought he looked quicker, more dynamic as a runner, maybe a bit slimmer on top of that. But now we get Steve Spagnuolo's defense, which is very different, and he torched them in the Super Bowl. So if they sell out like they did then to stop Saquon Barkley in the running game, then both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith scored in that Super Bowl. And in week 1, the same Chiefs defense allowed 9.4 yards per pass attempt against Justin Herbert and the Chargers with 304 passing yards. Joe Burrow, quarterback 4 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Joe Burrow was pressured on 43% of his non-blitzed dropbacks in week 1. That's the highest rate in the league. Yes, once again, we're talking about the Bengals offensive line. But, you're not facing Myles Garrett and Mason Graham. Nope. Instead, you're facing this Jaguars unit, which has some really nice pieces, but nothing quite to the talent of Myles Garrett on top of it. In the second half on Sunday, Joe Burrow was 3 of 9 for 25 total yards with 1 passing first down and 3 sacks taken. Again, slow starts have been the name of the game here for the Bengals over the last handful of years. They tried to prevent it this year, finally playing Joe Burrow in the preseason more than they ever have before, and we still get the same exact result. But sometimes that changes immediately in week 2 or in week 3, and then these players, including Chase and T. Higgins, go nuclear. So let's hope for that here in week 2. Justin Herbert at the Raiders is quarterback 5 on the week. The Chargers threw the ball 14% over expectation in week 1. That's even a tick above, I believe it was the 8% rate from week 8 on last season. That's sweet. I mean, we get to unleash Justin Herbert and his rocket arm down the field. He gets Keenan Allen and improved Quentin Johnson. Even Trey Harris popped up with a catch. And on top of that, he ran the ball 7 times for 32 yards. So if they've even pulled the lever of allowing him to scramble even more often because he's healthier entering the season, good stuff here for Justin Herbert, who could make a mark, as a top, 6, 7 quarterback the rest of the way. And he wasn't drafted there heading into the season. Justin Fields is your quarterback 6 on the week. This is against the Buffalo Bills after being quarterback 2 in points per game last week. The Jets averaged 8.2 yards per play on first downs, which is second best in the league in week 1. It's why when we get on the shows, we talk about how Tanner Engstrand coming from the Lions, and we know with the Bears as a part of this whole love triangle with Johnny Morton and the Lions too, that Engstrand really put down his identity. He made it known immediately, and that is perfectly playing out on these first downs to get ahead of the sticks. And then when teams don't know if, you're going to drop back, you're going to take shot plays on the field, if you're going to run the ball, that's going to be with a, running back or Justin Fields running game. And that keeps you on edge a little bit. And it's not like the Bills defense instilled any confidence in being able to stop that after what they showed against the Ravens in week 1, especially those linebackers like Matt Milano, tick slower. Terrell Bernard was getting stuffed to the ground. So yeah, Jets offensive line, they step up again. We know that Lamar Jackson ran for 70 yards and a touchdown against his Bills defense in week 1. Kyler Murray is quarterback 7 against the Carolina Panthers. Panthers only had a pressure rate of 12% in week 1. That was actually half of last year's league worst. When you spend all that money, you shouldn't get twice as bad. That's what happened. I will add though, like Kyler played the Panthers last year, hit or miss. And I would even say he was hit or miss in week 1. I mean, Arizona averaged a league low 1.8 yards on first down. He was turning down throws. Like I said, he scrambled, I think, on 3 of his first 7 dropbacks. So at some point, like he just needs to let things play out in this offense and show he's a good fit for what Drew Petzing wants to do in Arizona. And once it happens, like they can really take it up to the next notch. We'll see if that does happen in week 2. By the way, I'm sure producer Weaves is throwing some pick 'em projections at you while we're talking about these players. If you've never played on Underdog, now is the time to do so. I believe we are live in 41 states at this point. And if you've never used it, again, use promo code the show. You play $5, we'll throw $50 in bonus credits in your direction. So go and support us by supporting Underdog. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback 8 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Yep, in the opener, when wide receivers went down, Patrick Mahomes scrambled 4 times for 42 yards and a touchdown in the second half. He's probably going to have to do that once again against this Eagles defense because in these pivotal games, tight games, Mahomes likes to run a bit more often. At the same time, he was shut down in the Super Bowl until very late with that long Xavier Worthy touchdown. So, yeah, they're going to have to figure things out very quickly with different players than they were expecting to heading into the 2025 season. Dak Prescott is quarterback 9 against this Giants defense. I believe Dak has won 13 straight games against this Giants team that he has started. That's crazy. Like Eli Manning was the quarterback that he last faced off against when the Giants last won. Whew. Cowboys are 8th in projected points this week at 24.5. Bo Nix is quarterback 10. This is at the Indianapolis Colts. When pressured in week 1, Bo Nix completed 4 of 10 passes for 13 yards and an interception. Again, when he was pressured, he completed 4 of 10 passes for 13 yards with an interception. Lou Anarumo, who's the Colts' new defense coordinator this year, came over from the Bengals, confused the hell out of Tua. So the question is, can he confuse Sean Payton and Bo Nix to an equal level? Because their individual pass rushers, leave some room to be desired. Let's put it that way. Jared Goff, quarterback 11 against the Chicago Bears. This is quite high. Goff averaged a league low 4.2 air yards per attempt in week 1. Was that a protection fear? Most likely against that ridiculous Packers defense. So will that same fear happen here? The same mindset against the Chicago Bears defensive unit, which has some players, but nothing to the talent of Micah Parsons, Lucas Van Ness, Rashawn Gary, so on and so forth. And on the opposite sideline, that is going to be Caleb Williams as the quarterback 12 against that Lions defense. Caleb scrambled on 14% of his dropbacks in week 1, which is the second highest rate in the league. I'm sure all of us watching that thought it was much higher than 14%. That was some of his best work in the game. It wasn't necessarily staying on structure, reading through the play with good eyes, good feet, good arm. And instead, he would have these Houdini-like escapes. I think that's going to be very difficult to sustain week over week. Like, are you just going to be out of the grasp of Jonathan Allen every single time? This is also Kelvin Shepard's second game as a play caller. I don't know if you saw that clip from Coach Speak Index, but that dude is fired up. So we'll see what he throws at him. They blitz on 43% of the time, which is a stupid high rate. So we'll see if Caleb can make him pay when they do blitz the opposition. Matthew Stafford is quarterback 13 at the Tennessee Titans, much higher than consensus rankings Hayden is, who have him as quarterback 24, which makes sense. I mean, Matthew Stafford is purely a pocket passer. He has to throw touchdown passes. You can't have Kyron Williams rushing in 1 or 2 touchdowns if Matthew Stafford is going to be quarterback 13. But let's say this is at the Tennessee Titans, a Titans defense, specifically secondary. You can dice up. Stafford led the league with dropbacks under center in week 1 at 65%, which is the second highest rate since joining the Rams. It's very notable for a guy that missed the vast majority of preseason practice due to a back injury, that he's totally fine working from under center and taking these long dropbacks. On those plays, he was 12 of 15 for 129 yards and a touchdown on top of that. But again, despite how good Stafford played last week, he was only quarterback 19 in scoring. So Hayden having him 6 spots ahead of that is notable to me. Drake Maye is next as quarterback 14 at the Miami Dolphins. Only ran for 11 yards last week. That was one of my biggest disappointments of week 1. Patriots used pre-snap motion on only 28% of Drake Maye's dropbacks, which is 30th in the league in week 1. Josh McDaniels, pull those levers, man. Scrambles, design runs, pre-snap motion, play action. We need all of it. If they protect him in this game against the Dolphins, which, that's the only thing that the Dolphins offer at this point, and there's really a chance, I think, that Drake Maye could have a great day. Trevor Lawrence is quarterback 15 at the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, just needs to play better. Hit the open throws that Liam Cohen presents him. And if he does that, his stat lines are going to tell the story. So I'm not panicking. I'm excited for what Trevor Lawrence can do against this Bengals defense. Michael Penix is quarterback 16 at the Minnesota Vikings. 42 passes in week 1, the 5th most in the league, but they were quite different. Last year, 10.2 air yards per attempt he averaged as a rookie. In week 1, that was down to 6.9 air yards. I don't know if that was because they were missing Darnold Mooney and they pivoted to more Kyle Pitts. We'll see if that continues here in week 2. And I'm assuming it will, because now you're going against Brian Flores on the road, going to send some really funky looks at you up front and then play like shell zone coverage in the back half. So this is going to be quite the test for Penix in his second start this season. JJ McCarthy is here as quarterback 17 against the Atlanta Falcons. Hopefully you tuned into that episode with Ryan Heath this summer where he talked about the McShanahan tree doing just flat out good for quarterbacks. And yeah, that definitely was the case in week 1. Not for 3 quarters. I mean, JJ made 1 throw for 3 quarters, but the 4th quarter was stupid good. Scrambling, rushing aided his fantasy scores on top of it. And the Falcons had a few near sacks, I thought, last week, near turnovers that they didn't pull off against Baker Mayfield. They had a 40.5% pressure rate after ranking 30th in the NFL in 2024. That was up to 9th in week 1. I'm not sure if Christian Darrisaw will play in this game, but overall, I would expect this Vikings unit to protect a lot better than the Bucs unit did last week. Daniel Jones is quarterback 18. Yeah, I'll repeat that. For Hayden Winks, Daniel Jones is quarterback 18, even against the Denver Broncos defense. Jones was only pressured on 24% of his dropbacks in week 1, and he's only had 4 games in his career with a lower pressure rate, and the last one was back in 2022. So again, if that can keep up, then yeah, Daniel Jones is going to have open receivers, either tight ends or multiple pass catchers out there, and Shane Steichen can call a really good game. But to me, if he is pressured, then that's when his game tanks. And you have Zach Allen, you have Nick Menino, you have these other players. So I'm not sure if I'm confident as Hayden is with quarterback 18. Geno Smith is quarterback 19 against the Los Angeles Chargers. He connected on 9 gains of 20 or more yards in one game. 9 of 20 plus yard plays. This has turned into a pass first offense when they can't run. They don't just keep shoving Ashton Genty into the back of his offensive lineman. So if that happens again against the Chargers, which is very possible, then Geno Smith to Jacoby Myers is a big win-win. It would be even better, though, if Brock Bowers does play in this game. Baker Mayfield is quarterback 20 at the Houston Texans. Again, as I mentioned, the wide receiver show, he pushed the ball down the field quite a bit in week 1 with Josh Grizzard, which is very different than with Liam Cohen last year. I mean, he averaged 10.4 air yards per attempt in week 1, which is the 3rd highest in the league. In 2024, that was at 7 yards downfield, which is 28th in the league. He threw the ball out of behind the line of scrimmage way less often in week 1. No Tristan Wirfs could be a big issue against this Texans pass rushing unit. on these longer developing downfield plays. So keep an eye on that with the hires, let's say, in sacks. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson might make good on those near sacks that Baker Mayfield frequently takes in every single game. Tua Tagovailoa is quarterback 21 against the New England Patriots, a Dolphins offensive line that is already missing their right guard and right tackle from the first snap of week 1. That's not good for a team that had offensive line questions heading into this season. And the Patriots have some bullies up front, even if they're missing Keon White in this game. So now they're at home. Maybe that's the only other thing positively we can say about this Dolphins unit. And they aren't facing Christian Gonzalez in terms of the cornerback for the Patriots. And so again, we'll repeat. If the Dolphins can't do it here, they can't do it anywhere. CJ Stroud, quarterback 22, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The highest rate of 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets across the league in week 1, but they still have pass protecting issues. And now you're going up against a Todd Bowles defense that the Bucs, isolate players like Kalijah Cansey or Yaya Diaby that can really get home. And then if they need some help, Todd Bowles is not afraid to send some extra pass rushers to confuse the offensive line. And once again, the Texans offensive line was confused. And look, if Nico Collins again gets held to 3 catches for 25 yards, then where is CJ Stroud going to get his fantasy points in terms of passing the football? I will say, though, in these moments, CJ Stroud has been very active with scrambling. He is athletic enough to do it. So in these, major matchups where he's very much called upon, CJ Stroud and his scrambling can be a big asset for the Texans offense. Bryce Young, quarterback 23 at the Arizona Cardinals last year against this team, scored 36 points at home. It might be a different story when on the road. We'll see. I mean, his stuff with Tedero McMillan was really fun to watch and really good, but targeting anyone else was a massive issue. It was him, inaccurate passes, being late. It was them not coming up with contested targets or not getting feet in bounds, all that type of stuff. So, if they just had 3 T-Macs on the field, this passing attack would be a little bit better. Aaron Rodgers, quarterback 24 against the Seattle Seahawks. Pittsburgh used play action on 33% of his dropbacks in week 1. And that was the first time Rodgers has seen 30% plus of dropbacks in a game since the 2020 season. So if you, and I did, ask questions about how he would fit in Arthur Smith offense, we kind of already got our answer in week 1. And on those play action passes, he was 8 of 10 for 101 yards and 3 touchdowns. So keep doing that. Mac Jones is here as quarterback 25. This is at the New Orleans Saints. We'll see, man. Like, Kyle has had starts with CJ Beathard, with Nick Mullins, with a whole bunch of guys. Mac is, I think, a little more talented than them and will make good on that narrative, pre-draft narrative, that he wanted to take Mac Jones instead of Trey Lance. Joe Flacco at the Baltimore Ravens is quarterback 26. Yeah, they kept throwing the football. That was a big question heading into this season. They brought a new offensive line coach, tried to bring in some new running backs, and instead they just kept throwing the football against the Cincinnati Bengals. That probably continues, but now you get the Baltimore Ravens defense that were locked down close to it for 3 quarters. So good luck to you, Joe Flacco. We'll see what happens. Cam Ward, quarterback 27 against the Rams. He did not scramble in week 1, which was frustrating. Like, he didn't scramble a ton at Miami, but when he did, I thought he was really successful doing it. I want him to do a bit more in the NFL. And the Rams also had a 41% pressure rate in week 1, which is the 6th highest rate. And now JC Latham, Cam Ward's right tackle, is not going to play in this game. So I'm nervous. Look, Cam Ward played a lot better than his box score. Everyone on the internet has told you that. I agree. At the same time, he took some really bad sacks last week that took him out of field goal range and had some wayward passes too. So it's a high variance thing right now. And this is not a defense that you want to be high variance against. That's for sure. Sam Darnold, quarterback 28, Pittsburgh Steelers, is who he is facing. Darnold this low is pretty rough. I mean, he got nothing going in the running game Seattle did in week 1. Nothing going except for JSN in the passing game. Again, 150 total passing yards for Sam Darnold in 1 game. We'll see if that gets better against the Steelers defense that's missing a couple of pieces. Spencer Rattler against San Francisco. Decent game for Spencer Rattler this past week. And yeah, loves targeting Chris Olave. And then Russell Wilson closes things out as quarterback 30 at the Dallas Cowboys. yeah, this might be Russell Wilson's last start. But again, 4 or 5 games more, even after this one, are very difficult. So there is no good spot to put in Jackson Dart. Russ just like has to stop doing the hokey pokey and needs to start hitting downfield shots in order for them to have success. The biggest benefit, though, is not having to face Micah Parsons in this pass rushing unit. Okay, let's quickly go on over to tight ends. I'll just keep them up on the board for all of you. By the way, if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for helping, and send some well wishes to Hayden as he deals with a family issue. Trey McBride, Tyler Warren, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, and yes, Juwan Johnson are here as a top 6 tight ends. Look, this list isn't going to include Tucker Kraft or Zach Ertz, who I think Kraft was number 6 on Hayden's list, and then Zach Ertz was a top 12 tight end this week as well. Yeah, the big one, Tyler Warren, we keep talking about it. He's a top 3 or top 5 tight end the rest of the way. They are building the passing ship around him, that's for sure. The gimmies, he's going to get those, and he's going to get some downfield routes too. Travis Kelce needs to earn more targets, man. He needs to be a focal point of this passing attack. And, his touchdown, which made his fantasy week in week 1, was a design play that he was bluffing a screen block and then wide open spaces. That's not, sitting in zones, winning versus man coverage, any of that stuff. That has to be better in order for Travis Kelce, who needs to be, again, a bona fide stud for the next 4 weeks until Rashee Rice comes back. And Juwan Johnson, again, we talked about it in the wide receiver show with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. If the Saints are going to be down, and they're projected, I think, for the second fewest points this week, and they're going to have a lot of plays and throw the football a lot, then Juwan Johnson, who we talked about as a great sleeper in round 18 for best ball drafts, is going to get fed a bunch of targets. So that's really good stuff. Jake Ferguson, T.J. Hawkinson, Harold Fannin, Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, and Dalton Schultz make up tight ends 6 through 12. The big one here is Harold Fannin just flat out above David Njoku. That ranking makes sense to me because 1, this team throws a lot to their tight ends. 2, they throw more than run the ball. They're going to be down on the scoreboard. And Harold Fannin has, I'm not going to say force this team, but Kevin Stefanski has changed this team from being a 3 wide receiver set team to a 2 wide receiver set team. They were on multiple tight end looks. Fannin played anything from split out wide to inline to fullback to even, I think, getting a wildcat snap last week. So he's going to get manufactured screens, and that takes a lot away from David Njoku there too. 13 through 18. Brenton Strange, Hunter Henry, David Njoku, Geno Smith, Chigo Kwakwo, and Cade Otton. I'm not going to say much here. Brenton Strange had like 2 or 3 catches in the opening drive last week against the Panthers. Just looks good, man. Looks like one of those athletic tight ends that you take in the mid rounds in the actual NFL draft, who's mainly a blocker, then develops more and more and more in the league. It's exactly the type I want to invest in. And I'm excited for him to continue to make a big leap here, I believe in year 3 in the league. Then we close out with Colson Loveland, Theo Johnson, Mason Taylor, and Jatavian Sanders. Yeah, Colson Loveland is a player that I'm really excited for the entire season. But with how bad the Bears offense looked in week 1, and then, them also having Cole Kmet, it's just not going to happen immediately. It could at any point, right? But we also need to see, more things designed for him from and by Ben Johnson, and that just didn't happen enough in week 1. That is going to do it. We'll see you on Sunday morning. Start sit show 11 a.m. Eastern. 2 hours answering your questions, getting ready for kickoff. We'll see you all then. Now versus Flores. Who cares about Flores? Why am I writing this stuff? Gotta fly. It's going to be there. It's my co-host today.